All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to On the Line podcast. Hope you're having a wonderful day. French Open over, onto the grass court season. I'm here with my co-host Oliver Dixon Jefford. Oliver, how are you doing?
I'm very good. How are you now?
Yeah, great day here. World Cup almost about to start. Not even tennis related, but who cares? One of the world's greatest sporting events about to turn up.
No, Wimbledon's a couple of weeks off yet.
Yeah. And so with the French Open over, we're here to do our French Open grade. So we're going to run this podcast a little differently. So I'll be hosting Oliver he'll do the women's grades, and then Oliver will be hosting me. I'll be more doing an analyst role for the men's grades. So one host, one analyst. So we are going to start with the women first, and we're going to start with, obviously, the French Open champion finally breaks through, Simona Halep. What is your grade for her?
She was absolutely superb. It's such an amazing moment for her. After she lost in the Australian Open final to Wozniacki, who was someone who had won so many titles without catching the slam, she was, at the forefront, certainly of active players and possibly of looking at women's tennis as a whole as one of the greatest players not to win a slam. And obviously she's had 3 tough final defeats, obviously all 3 sets, particularly in Australia where she was break up in the final set, and obviously infamously at the French Open last year against Ostapenko, 3-love with points for double break in the second set, obviously 3-1 up again in the third set. So I think it was such a great moment to see her break through and have to come back. She was the set in the breakdown and she fought hard. She showed where she's improved. So I think it's definitely a big A grade for her. It was an incredible moment to see when she finally converted a match point in a Grand Slam final.
So just an A, not an A plus. We could give pluses and minuses. Yeah,
A plus, of course. Yeah, she played solid tennis throughout the tournament. Obviously she had a rough first set in the first round against Risk, but then turned that around comfortably. Obviously then came from a set down against Kerber in what was a great match, and she was eventually playing much better in the second and third sets against Kerber. Kerber didn't play badly at all, just Halep really raised her level. And then obviously in the final, after falling, she didn't play badly at any stage, but obviously she's a set in a breakdown. She really raised her level from there. And that final set was some of the best tennis she's probably ever played.
Yeah, it was some phenomenal stuff. Like, many were thinking Stevens set in a breakup that she looked to be in control, but then Halep got the break back and then, took the second set, and then you had to feel Halep was the favorite in set 3.
Yeah, it was quite even. Obviously we've seen the French Open last year, she was obviously like it's a break-up in both the second and third set, so we knew potentially that could happen. It's obviously we've seen countless times in matches before, particularly in women's where it's best of 3, where someone's come back and taken the second set from maybe a breakdown and then taken control in the third, and then there's been another swing. But I think it was a couple of the points she played when 3-love up to get that double break, which is something she missed out on in the final last year. That was when it was like, she's got this now. And I think a lot of people were wondering how she'd coach serving through. I think once she's got that double break advantage, obviously getting to 5-love, and obviously Stevens managing to avoid the bagel for 5-1. I think it was hard to see her not closing it out at one point. It wouldn't surprise me if she's failed to serve out the first time, but I wouldn't have seen her come back. She just seemed very composed. She was handling the occasion very, very well, I think.
Yeah, I also just realized Halep and Wozniacki both end up being the eventual champions, getting through epic classics against Kerber.
Sorry?
Oh, I said so Wozniacki wins the Australian, Halep wins the French, but they both have to get through epic 3-setters against Angelique Kerber to get there.
It's Halep who played Kerber in Australia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as 9-7. Yeah. Wozniacki beat Mertens. Sorry, man.
Whoops. Looks like I can't read, but to each their own. Thought there was, some writing in the stars meeting Angelique Kerber this year. Slams, guess not. So on to the other finalist, Sloane Stephens. And we talked about this, the day of the final. You think that this final might be more important to Stephens rather than her US Open victory?
I think so. I mean, you do obviously, she'll be disappointed. I mean, a lot of people will say from her being a set and a breakup, she probably should have won it. I think she certainly could have, but obviously Simona was playing superb tennis. She raised her level. I think it's more of a case of Simona winning it than Stephens losing it. But yeah, I think obviously having won that US Open title was an amazing moment to win a slam. But obviously that was not a great final for her. This is a match up against Keys, which obviously we saw in the semi-final, that really suits her. Someone who's going to make a lot of errors, even if they are playing well. Someone who's going to make a lot of errors trying to break you down, which is something Stephens does. And obviously Stephens has quite a lot of power herself, so she's able to get on the front foot on some occasions. So yeah, I think in terms of that final back in Flushing Meadows, obviously Keys did not play well at all. I think she's potentially injured as well. So I think Stephens didn't have to do much. Obviously, she will be disappointed with this result. But I think, she's reached another slam final. I think she'll know where to go from much more now than she would have in Flushing Meadows. Obviously, we saw she struggled greatly after that triumph. I can't see a similar downfall now. I think she'll do well at all the big tournaments this year and potentially both the slams again. I think she's got a great all-court game, and she could go to another good run at Wimbledon, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, there was a media joke that about her losing record in outside of the US, but I mean, I feel that she's definitely improving on that, and she's definitely an all-court player. Feel like that she'll probably wouldn't be a surprise to us that she ends up with a career Grand Slam. You think?
Absolutely not. I mean, she does have. She has a great all-court game. Obviously, it's more suited to some surfaces than others, but she's someone who I feel is undoubtedly capable of winning all surfaces. I mean, I think Halep can, but I do see her struggling at Wimbledon, for example, where she could be out here. I think Stephens. So she's a great mover, great defender, and she can take advantage of how fast grass is when being aggressive as well. So I think she's certainly capable of getting a career Grand Slam. And I mean, she's only 25, which in tennis terms nowadays is not old at all. I mean, if you ever look at obviously Serena's playing, I think she's going to be 37 this year. Obviously, a lot of other people playing into mid-30s now as well. So I think she's got a lot of time, and she's definitely going to win more slams. Whether she ends up getting all four of them or the three she's got left remains to be seen. But she certainly can do it.
Yeah, and quite didn't hear. But what was your grade for Sloane?
I think an A, because I think obviously disappointing end of the final for her, but I think really good tournament overall.
Yeah, solid grade there. All right, so on to the semifinalists now. So we're going to start with Garbiñe Muguruza. So she didn't play much leading into the French, but really breezed through her opening matches, and then as well as a very strong showings against Stosur. Had their Serenko retired down 2-love, so pretty much a day off there, and then really rolled Sharapova. But then, against Simona Halep, 1-6 in the first opening set, and then had chances in the second, but couldn't take them. And then the inevitable, writing on the wall with the late charge for Halep to take that semifinal. So talk about Garby and your grade for her.
Well, I think it's a slightly disappointing end, especially in that semi-final. The first set, she wasn't great. I think in the second set, she played to a much better standard. But obviously, I think Halep had got a lot of momentum by that point and was able to eventually pull through. But I think overall, very encouraging for her. She's someone who's been a bit hit and miss this year, which is not massively a surprise for her. But I think this year it's been more due to injuries. I think she's retired from something like 6 or 7 tournaments. Gone through a really rough time, and yeah, she played some really good tennis. I mean, the match against Sharapova, yes, Sharapova was not at her best, but still Muguruza in complete control. Obviously beat Sharapova, was a former champion there. Obviously, she beat another former champion in Svetlana Kuznetsova in the first round, which was a great match. Particularly for Muguruza, to beat Stosur, who's a former finalist. So yeah, I think this is probably her best tournament of the year. I think there's a lot of encouraging signs for her, especially considering she's going into her Wimbledon title defence. Obviously, coming into her title defence in Paris last year, hadn't won a tournament since then, was looking pretty rough in terms of tennis, and obviously ended up having a pretty rough tournament with quite a bad fourth round loss in the end. So I think it bodes better for her this time, and I think she could be in prime for another good run at Wimbledon based on this.
And your grade?
I'm probably going to go for an A-, I'd say.
Oh, very nice grader. People want Oliver as their professor. The not harsh grader. And so moving on to the other semifinalist, Madison Keys. So obviously we remember the US Open final last year where Keys kind of looked overwhelmed with the moment. It's been playing in her first Grand Slam final. I mean, you got to give credit to Sloane, give credit where credit is due with how Sloane played, making Maddie very uncomfortable, but she looked overwhelmed there. She didn't really look overwhelmed here and put up a good fight compared to the last time we saw these two play each other.
Yeah, I think she was obviously, as I kind of mentioned before when discussing Stevens, it's not a great matchup for Keys at all. And I think obviously, I don't think many people would have been predicting her to win beforehand. But yeah, it was she didn't play badly, I'd say. I think it's just not a great matchup for her, and Stevens brings out a lot of errors. But I think as a whole, a surprisingly good tournament. I think this is probably, for me, the biggest surprise because I don't associate her with being a great clay course. I know she's reached the final in Rome before, but I certainly didn't see this run coming. Obviously, I think she's slightly aided by the fact that Svitolina fell early and they went to meet in the fourth round. But still, some very solid tennis, and she's picked up some solid slam results. Now, obviously, a final in US Open, as you mentioned, and the semi-final here, and also the quarter-final in Australia early this year, I believe, where she lost to Kerber. And so it means Wimbledon's the only slam she hasn't reached the last four now, because obviously she reached the last four in Australia a few years ago. So, yeah, very, very good run for her. I think there's a lot to look forward to grass, which I think is her strongest surface. Obviously, she's won Eastbourne and Birmingham before. And yeah, I think a good ending to her coaching partnership with Lindsay Davenport as well. Obviously, we know Lindsay Davenport's still going to act as like a mentor for her, but obviously she's going to David Taylor now. Yeah, and I think it's a really solid result to build on. I think she should be very satisfied with her tournament.
So I hear another A in the cards, don't I?
Yes, yeah. And A it's hard. I think because I have to say A- because in the semi-final, obviously, I know Stevens isn't a great matchup, but there was a few too many errors. But yeah, I think it was a good tournament. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, very good tournament. And I like the fight back. I mean, she was down double break in the second, and it looked like, a repeat of what we were going to see in the US Open final. But, pulled the break back, forced Stevens to serve out for it twice. So I think that's really strong on Keys to be able to mentally hang in there compared to what happened last time. So now we move on to 5 other notable names that we will discuss, and we'll also have honorable mention grades at the end. But I'm feeling there won't be a lot more A's here, Oliver.
Probably not, no.
So we're going to start with who Muguruza beat in the quarterfinal, Maria Sharapova.
Yeah, I think the highlight for her was undoubtedly that third round match against Pliskova. She was excellent. It was probably the best match she's played since her return, and probably one of her best matches ever, because obviously Pliskova's obviously 6 seeds, obviously ranked quite a lot higher than her. Obviously,
Won Stuttgart
semi-finalist in Madrid, so he's picked up some decent form on clay early on this year. Semi-finalist in the French Open last year as well, so vastly improved on clay and really dismantled her. Before that, really tough first round. She was a set to break up, ended up, I think, a breakdown in the final set. but she pulled through. She fought really hard. She came through, which is something she's always done. So I think that's could be obviously a tough match against Vekic after that. But obviously after that, we didn't see much of her because obviously that clash with Serena unfortunately didn't happen. I think we should probably assume Serena would have won that considering the head-to-head if she'd been fully fit. But I think a lot of people were potentially favouring Sharapova, so it would have been interesting to see. And she didn't play too well in the quarterfinals, unfortunately, maybe because she'd had a couple of days off, hadn't got much match practice. Albeit Muguruza did play very well, but there was a few too many errors from her. So it's hard to tell because what happened in the fourth round with Serena pulling out, and obviously with Muguruza. I'm leaning towards. I think I'm going to give her a B- because obviously it was a disappointing end, but this was definitely her best big tournament since her comeback.
Oh, definitely agree. Definitely her best big tournament since the comeback. I mean, obviously we talked about what could have happened at the U.S. Open. I believe it was to who was it to?
Got her fourth round loss.
Yeah, her fourth round loss
to Sevastova.
Yeah, to Sevastova. And I believe she was up a set there.
Yeah, she won the first set, and I think there was a ball which was a shot she hit at one point on a break point, which would have given her a set and a break lead, which was called, I think it was called out, and it was actually in, and I think it might have been a winner, or the other way round, one of Sevastova's shots was called in and was out. So she kind of, that kind of went away from her that one. I think she lost that 6-2 in the final set.
Okay.
Obviously, it's not a great matchup for her. They had another really tight match a few weeks ago, which she say a few weeks after that even, where she saved a couple of match points to win. But yeah, I think obviously disappointing the Serena clash didn't happen, but I think a solid return to the French Open. Obviously, she hadn't played there since 2015.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of Serena, we're just going to move on to her next. Obviously, Serena didn't play the Australian Open. Saw her play Davis Cup. Or not Davis Cup, Fed Cup. Saw her play Fed Cup. Played Indian Wells, Miami. I mean, okay showing in Indian Wells. Early exit in Miami. But then said she wasn't ready to go play clay. So trained in her coach's academy in Mortaglu's academy in the south of France, and then prepped herself to play the French Open. And now she's here. And obviously the disappointing withdrawal in the fourth round against Sharapova, as you alluded to already. But what is your grade for Serena?
I think obviously that is an unfortunate her injury. I think, but before that, she was playing some very good tennis. Particularly the comeback against Ashley Barty, obviously setting the breakdown really kicked into gear, and that was some really good tennis for her. Obviously solid against Gurges as well. I think like Sharapova, I'm going to give her a B-, which I think is a solid grade for her first Slam tournament in over a year. Just a shame about the injury, and obviously I can see why she wanted to play doubles with Venus, because obviously she loves playing doubles with Venus. It's good to get some match practice, but obviously, unfortunately,
that's where she picked up the injury.
I think she picked up the injury against Gurges in the third round, but obviously playing doubles in a day between Gurges and when she was meant to play Sharapova kind of aggravated it. I think the final set in that doubles was very one-sided because it went to first. I think it might even been 6-love.
Yeah, it was pretty one-sided.
Yeah, and
could barely I mean, it's a pectoral injury, but how when we serve, it's all connected, and she could barely swing the racket, and she'd even take her own tennis bag off the court after.
It's a shame, but interesting to see how Wimbledon goes.
So also the B-, you said?
Yes, yeah.
All right, so now on to some more, disappointing players. So we're gonna hear some harsh grades here, but Alina Svitolina came in obviously as one of the pre-tournament favorites. Had won Rome a couple weeks before, so we knew what she was capable of. Probably most people had plumped for her to face Halep in a final, and probably what could have been a classic final. had we seen it. But then Svitolina went out to Mihaela Buzarnescu in the third round, and Madison Keys took full advantage of that, going all the way to the semifinals. So your grade for Svitolina?
I'm going to have to be a bit mean and go for D, I think, because she'd come in, obviously, with another run to the title in Rome. Looked mightily impressive there, obviously, completely dismantled Halep in that final. But yet, once again, didn't live up to expectations at a Slam tournament. And obviously, Buzarnescu is a great story, but it's a match Svitolina really should have won. And I mean, you would have fancied her to beat Keys. And looking ahead, I mean, could have easily. She was my pick to win the title before the tournament. I think.
Likewise.
I think she's a lot of people's. Really think she could have won this. I mean, obviously, for example, she could have faced Stevens in the semi-final and Halep in the final. Obviously, both of them playing well, but she's more than capable of beating both of them if she's playing well. So, yeah, I think there's a sense of disappointment for her because this was a big chance for her. Obviously, she's only made 3 Grand Slam quarterfinals so far, 2 of them here, including last year, where she had obviously kind of completely lost the plot against Halep. But yeah, so I think it's a disappointing tournament for her. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and many were saying, "Oh, it might have been good that that her first round match against Alia Tomljanovic was a testing one because if she gets tested early, she'll probably not suffer what happened. A third round loss. Maybe tested early on. Continue to cruise and then get tested later, but still end up being the Grand Slam champion. Not the case here.
But yeah, I think if someone struggles early on, it's either a sign of they're playing badly, but they'll snap out of it, or they're just generally playing badly and not at their best. And I think that proves to be the case for her, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. Next up is Serena's big sister, Venus Williams, out in the first round again. So that's back-to-back times that she goes out in the first round, losing this one to Wang Qiang of China. So obviously we had the classic against Belinda Bencic in Australia. But yeah, first time in Venus's career, back-to-back first-round losses in Grand Slams.
Yeah, it was pretty rough for her. I mean, if I remember correctly, I think the two played a tight match of Wimbledon last year early on. I think Wang might have been up a set in that, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, it's rough, obviously, losing so early, first time in her career, and obviously she's been playing so long, so many tournaments. It's pretty rough statistic. So, yeah, obviously not a good win for her. I mean, no one was going to say she's won a title, but she certainly could have picked up a few matches. So, yeah, it's a shame. I think it's probably going to be a low grade for her. I'm going to give her a D-.
Oh, D-. Escapes the F. I think the F is coming to someone we'll talk about next, and it is Yelena Ostapenko, defending champion, who wins the Wooden Spoon Award as, buddy, guess so. Can't really explain it. Do you know how to explain the Wooden Spoon?
It starts so it's the person who lost to the person, and eventually goes to the people who lose until they lose. Stevens lost the final to Halep. So you had Stevens losing to Halep. You had Keys losing to Stevens. You had Putintseva losing to Keys. Then you had Strichkova losing to Putintseva. And then I can't remember who's lost to Strichkova in the third round, but it was whoever had beaten Kozlova in the second round, because Kozlova beat Ostapenko in the first round. I hope that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, so I can't really explain it still, but I hope Oliver had a good explanation. But yes, Ostapenko, Wooden Spoon winner, also out in the first round as the defending champion to Katerina Kozlova. I mean, looking at the stats, like double-digit double faults, over 50+ unforced errors. I mean, she had that many unforced errors in the final last year too, but she equated that with that many winners. So
Yeah, and that was over 3 sets that final.
Yeah, over 3 sets. So this was, you gotta say, about 20, 25, 26 unforced errors a set here. So the grade for Ostapenko, who went out to Katerina Kozlova,
I'm gonna have to give her, like, I'm not sure, like an E or an F, because it was. I mean, I don't think anyone was predicting her to win the title again, but I think most people were expecting a solid showing, and she became only the second woman in the Open era to lose in the first round of the French Open after won the title before, and she really played an awful match. I mean, we know she can play some. We know she plays, high risk, high percentage tennis, and often we see it. Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. It really didn't pay off. I haven't seen her play that badly ever, and she just seemed lost in terms of how to fix that, which I think is the problem she's going to face over the next few years. The fact she's built up such a solid season around that means she hasn't nosedived in the rankings completely. She's only just outside the top 10 again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just really disappointing title defense.
Yeah, probably one of the most disappointing title defenses in a long time. You think so?
Yeah, I mean, only in the Open here at the French Open, it's only Anastasia Miskina, who won the title in 2004. Lost in the first round of their title defense. She lost in 2005. Can't think of many other occasions of where people have lost early. I know after Leighton Hewitt won the Wimbledon title, he lost the first round the next year to Ivo Karlovic. I think Kuznetsova might have lost first round in 2005 after she won the US Open. So can't think of many other really early losses. It's particularly first round. First round is obviously very rough. But yeah, it was disappointing defense for sure.
Yes. All right. So some honorable mention grade. So you mentioned Pliskova, Sharapova. What's your grade for Karolina Pliskova?
I mean, Sharapova played great, but that was not a good performance from her, especially considering, how good she's been out the clay court season. And she hadn't really played well in her matches building up to that. So I think I'm going to have to give her a D.
All right. Another pre-tournament favorite, Petra Kvitova, your grade for her?
She obviously had a tough first match against Veronika Sepetova. Good in her second round, but obviously tight loss to Kontaveit, but Kontaveit's a fastly rising player. She's very talented. I don't think that's a major shock either. So I'm going to be a little nice. I'm going to give her a C-.
All right. And then world number 2, Caroline Wozniacki.
I'm going to give her a solid B- because clay's never been her surface, and she picked up 3 very good wins before losing to Kasatkina, who's already beaten her twice this year. So not an amazing tournament, but I don't think a disaster. It was solid.
All right, so we will take a short break, and then we will move on to the men. So we will be right back. All right, so you're going to host me now, buddy.
Okay. Oh.
I mean, pretty much you're just going to do what I did.
So, go hi, I'm Oliver.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, yeah, because I'm going to separate it into two parts. So, yeah, I'm going to cut it into 2 pods. So I can have one for the men when I write about it tomorrow, and then one for the women when I also write about it tomorrow.
Okay. So, when I go to the men, I've obviously got the ones you said: Natal, Thiem, Del Potro, Cecchinato, Djokovic, Sasha, Cilic, Dimitrov, Wawrinka. Who do you want me to mention? Honorable mention wise.
Schwartzman. Schwartzman's a good one.
Do you want me to mention maybe? Shall I just say the French men in general briefly?
Yeah.
They're I shall just say Prull and Gasquet because they made the 3rd round, or Prull, Gasquet, and Monfils, but I think that'll do because that's 3 in one go.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
So Schwartzman, Frenchman, anyone else?
I can't really. Just shall we mention you could discuss, I don't know, Trungelliti briefly if you wanted.
A plus for the story.
I'll mention that.
All right, that sounds good.
Briefly, yeah.
All right, this could be fun to go cut and stuff. I've never really done much cutting before, podcasts, but why the heck not? Yeah. There's a slight echo in the background this right now.
I'm not sure what that is. I don't know. I haven't moved anything, so it's a bit of thumping going on now because my parents and brother just taken out. They've got dentists. So they're going off all over the place, making sure they brush their teeth or whatever.
Yeah. All right. So, are you ready?
Yes. So, do you want me to just go?
Yes.
Okay. Hi guys, welcome to the On the Line podcast. I'm Oliver Dixon Jefford, and I'm here with my co-host Noel Alberto, and we are about to discuss the men's singles tournament at the French Open this year. Noel, how are you?
I am doing wonderful. Ready to talk about some guy who won this thing for an 11th time or something. I heard he's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, what's his name again? I mean, yeah. There's only one man we can really start with. I mean, obviously, whoever would have won, we'd have started with them. But no surprises to see once again certain Spaniards capturing the Coupe de Musketeers for the staggering 11th time, the Una Decima, Rafael Nadal. No, what did you make of his tournament?
I mean, I thought he was struggling early on. Felt like he was kind of nervous. I mean, at his age, and all the things he's been through, he's probably thinking that, this could be the last time. So, I mean, the conditions in the first match really weren't in his favor. Some heaviness. So Bolelli took advantage of that, had set points, ended up, Nadal ended up winning 11-9 in the third set tiebreak. One-way traffic against Guido Pella, and then Richard Gasquet. Martyr gave him a good run, but then we talk about, really struggled against Schwartzman. I mean, huge, heavy conditions once again, and Schwartzman was redlining it brilliantly. I mean, I watched that first set. The little Argentine, little taller than me. I'm about 5'5" and a half, 5'6". He's 5'7", 5'8". He hit 20+ winners on Nadal at the French Open, so that's absurd numbers. Up a break in the second as well, but then rain happened. So, and then next day, beautiful conditions. Nadal one-way traffic again, and then pretty much against the semifinal against Del Potro, the big Argentine, unlike his much shorter countryman, he put all his effort into that first set, hoping to get a break. 0 for 6 on break points, could not get that break, and then Nadal was just dominant. And for the final, I kind of thought Team was going to play a little. Team played well, but I thought, the conditions weren't as sunny as as expected, so little cloud coverage. I thought Team would, try to take advantage of that, but Nadal just looked so solid. A+ for him. The tears, once again, in the trophy presentation, just really redline the fact that it takes out so much physically, mentally, and emotionally out of this guy to just do this every time, to dominate on a surface like this, especially that's so grueling to the body. That it's a surface you're supposed to get worse at as you're getting older, but you could arguably say he's just been getting better.
Absolutely. I think particularly last year, we're seeing some of the best tennis we've ever played in this tournament, aren't we? I mean, particularly I'd say that semi-final against Del Potro, final 2 sets, completely blitzed Del Potro, who's obviously a great player, obviously a former Slam champion. And, as you mentioned, Team didn't play badly in the final, just Nadal never really looked like cracking. I mean, he was broken in the third game and that was it, wasn't it? So, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, how many titles do you think he still got to come there? Because it seems likely there's going to be more.
I mean, back in 2008, I had a discussion with a friend. So this was a while ago, so a decade ago. I said Nadal would win a dozen. So I expect at least one more, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up with I don't know, 14, maybe 15. What's your number?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell because I mean, I think we talk. I mean, you mentioned Team. We'll discuss him in a minute. And of course, like Sasha Zverev, who we'll discuss as well. But I think as them two and others who are in this draw are capable of winning this title in the future. But I can't see it being easy for anyone to beat Nadal at best of 5 sets on clay for at least a couple of years yet. So I'm thinking at least 12, as you mentioned. So probably next year. I think definitely he's likely to win the next 2 years at least, I'd say. So that would put him at 13.
All right. So if his favorite team, Real Madrid, doesn't win the Champions League the next 2 years, Nadal ties them, and then they could call it even.
So your final grade, getting
A plus.
A+,
Can't give him anything else.
Yeah. So obviously now we go to someone who we've kind of discussed, obviously, because the big part of Nadal's story, and that's Dominic Thiem, who is in his first ever Grand Slam final this week. Only the second Austrian person ever to reach a Grand Slam final after Thomas Müster, who won this title back in 1995 and is a former world number one. Thiem come under a lot of flack after the past couple of years, despite some very solid tennis. Hadn't really performed majorly well at the slams, but I think a real breakthrough for him this past fortnight. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, this was his breakthrough slam 2 years ago. Kind of surprising. All of us coming out of nowhere to reach the semifinals. I believe it. He lost to Djokovic.
Yes, Djokovic that year.
Yeah, and then
last year.
Yeah, lost to Nadal last year after beating Djokovic, ironically, and then makes the final this year, and then so he received a lot of slack for playing in Lyon, not too long before the French Open, won the title, and then took the train up, and then had a practice day, then played his match, but his coach, his name is escaping me.
Günter Bresnik.
Yeah, Günter Bresnik says the reason I put him through this is because to be strong in pressure situations, you have to play in pressure situations. So put him in the pressure situation, play in Lyon, your favorite to win the title. Can you do it? Does that, and, gets through to the final. So I think very, very great tournament for him. Probably wanted to play a little better in the final, but you can't, blame him, as Alex Correia said, playing a best of 5 against Nadal on clay is the worst thing to happen to any high-level athlete. And the final and this whole tournament kind of showed that you can't really, unless you are 2 sets up, you can't really feel comfortable against Nadal. But I'll give an A+ to Thiem as well, just for making his first Grand Slam final.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And obviously, as we both kind of discussed, I mean, he was just outplayed in that final. He wasn't struck by nerves, I don't think, that much. It's just his playing Rafa, which was it, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we'll go on to the semi-finalists now. And the first one we'll come on to is a man who reached his first French Open semi-final for 9 years and unfortunately came unstuck then against a certain King of Clay. But now, how did you think Juan Martín del Potro did this tournament?
I think he did great. I mean, topsy-turvy quarterfinal against Cilic, who was probably one of the guys to look out for in the draw, as well as Del Pot himself, because we often allude to the first time Nadal was taken to 5 on clay. It was via John Isner, big server. So they were thinking, maybe Cilic or Del Potro could do the same. So was hoping that, but Del Potro looked pretty good, obviously. First set in the opening match to Nicolas Mahut, the eventual doubles champions were the Pierre-Hugues Herbert. Lost that 1-6, but, after that, pretty cruise control after that. Great story. Obviously, we know all his wrist injuries. He finally won his first Masters title this year. Did pick up, the great injury in Rome, and then looked to have picked up an injury in that opening set against Nadal in the semis, but, still hit and moved very well. But I'm going to give him a solid A- for this I mean, I'm going nice on the grades like you, but these are semifinalists here, so some great stuff from Juan Martín, and obviously he should be looking forward to Wimbledon, where he is a former semifinalist as well.
Absolutely, some very solid tennis from him this year. But now we go into much more surprising semi-finalists, and not just a surprising semi-finalist for this tournament, a surprising semi-finalist for many tournaments, and one of those surprising people to see in the last four of a Grand Slam tournament in a long time. So world number 72 only picked up his first ATP Tour title this year as a lucky loser. That man was Marco Cecchinato, who has never won a match on grass before, but will now find himself seeded at Wimbledon, likely, anyway, unless they alter the seedings too much. After a run to the last four. So what did you think of Cechinato's incredible run? I
mean, it was the guys he beat to take this title, or to not the title, to make the semifinal was just absolutely amazing. So down 2 sets to love against Marius Copil, and then finds his way back, wins 10-8 in the fifth, then beats another guy we'll talk about later, Marco Trungelliti, straight sets, but then beats former semifinal. Was it semifinalist? I know he was a quarterfinalist last year, but then had to walk over Carreño Busta.
He was a semi-finalist at the US Open.
Quarterfinalist, yeah. Had to, So Carreño Busta in 4, and he came from a set behind there. Defeated David Goffin, who is probably one of, wouldn't say pre-tournament favorites, but one of the guys to look out for to have a very decent run. So defeated him, and then took out Novak Djokovic in what was probably one of the best matches of the tournament. So obviously Cecchinato in that one got up 2 sets to love, then maybe was kind of overwhelmed in set 3, kind of just wanted to see what would happen. Djokovic found a new level, and then Djokovic pulled ahead. Cecchinato pulled ahead in set 4, and then the epic tiebreak where, both men who were who each had match points kind of had heavy arms. Cecchinato just was finding every way to probably blow this 4th set, but, had a bunch of brilliant returns. I mean, a la Novak Djokovic, who was doing the same thing with some epic, stretch shots down the line, but then the Serb's forehand kind of let him down, but kind of finished on a very, very good note for the Italian on the backhand pass on the serve and volley from the Serb, but has to be an A for Cecchinato. What a brilliant run, and we'll see what he has in store for grass. I mean, most people aren't expecting much, but most people weren't expecting much heading into the French Open. So,
yes, it'll certainly be interesting. I mean, he's in a good position. He's not going to be facing, a Federer or a Djokovic even in the first round now, is he? So it'll be interesting to see and how he moves on for this. There's a lot of attention brought on him, a lot of attention focusing back on them previous match fixing scandals brought up around him as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he is able to focus on his tennis and not focus on everything going on around him, I guess, now.
Mm-hmm.
But as you mentioned, he did beat Novak Djokovic in the quarterfinal. Probably the match of the tournament, one of the matches of the year so far.
Definitely. Which
culminated in that tiebreak, which was incredible to watch and just as stressful when it was repeated the next day on British television. And some errors, he went from the sublime to the ridiculous in that. He had, obviously, the match point. He converted the backhand pass. Some of Djokovic's volleys, one of Djokovic's shanks on a set point he had. And it's just crazy, but obviously a very disappointing end to his tournament. But what did you make of it overall for Djokovic? He's obviously back in a slam quarterfinal.
Yeah, I mean, he has to take a bunch of pauses. I know he was so gutted in the press conference that we were on Twitter. I believe it was, forgot the name of the press person, but she said that Novak was just so out of it during the press that he interrupted her mid-question, and he just said, I'm thinking of not playing grass at all. So he was kind of shook about, this loss, but, we saw some of his form come back to life in Rome. Obviously, great match against Nadal. It was straight sets, but it was so tightly contested both ways or in both sets that, you know, you thought Djokovic was going to be back and probably could have been, you know, 12-time Grand Slam champion. But I put in quotes, air quotes, he's probably a sleeper in this tournament just because, you know, he found his form in Rome kind of late on after, you know, the, you know, good run in the opening match of Monte Carlo in Rome looked good, but then, you know, kind of disappointing after that. But I will give him a solid B. So, you know, I mean, the loss was disappointing, but looks like he's slowly finding his way back to, you know, old form. He's never going to reach that peak Novak form like he did, you know, like 2014 through 16. But I feel that this is a very, very good tournament and a lot of positives for him to take away.
I absolutely agree. Just a shame for him how it ended. But what we'll do now is we'll go on to another person who fell in the quarterfinals, but had a entirely different situation. See, someone like Djokovic is so used to seeing at this stage. It was actually the first Grand Final for Sasha Zverev, who was the second seed, and he had a to say the lead to Dominic Thiem, tamely potentially suffering from an injury. So, what do you make of his rather tricky and certainly unusual run to that stage?
Yeah, so obviously much has been talked about how, you know, Sasha Zverev has never made a second week of a Grand Slam. I mean, he did make fourth round of Wimbledon last year, but that's arguably his worst surface. So not even taking advantage of his best surfaces. Obviously, one of the youngest Masters winners ever, won the 2 last year, 2 finals this year, plus, you know, the title. So he's been performing best of 3s, just not in best of 5s. But what a route for Sasha. Jeez Louise, young Sasha Zverev. So came in as the second seed because, you know, Federer withdrew. It looked like one-way traffic versus Ricardis Berankis. I mean, there's talks about him, the Lithuanian, having had an injury, but that was opening good signs for Sasha. But then put up against Dusan Lajovic, who had a very good run in one of the Masters a few weeks ago. I believe it was in Madrid, yeah. So it was in Madrid. So he had a very good run there. And then Lajovic, although he has been known to play well on all different kinds of surfaces, he's won a lot of his titles on clay. So there was that. But that was kind of a surprise, though, Zverev with that. And then Zimmer, another surprise, even though he was seeded 26, but you still expected Sasha to get through. So another 5-setter. And so Sasha was down 2-1 in 3 straight matches. It found a way to win, but then probably a hamstring injury that he picked up early on in the team match at some point kind of like hindered what could have been like a classic between the 2 guys that we expect to be winning plenty of Grand Slam titles over the next few years. But I'm going to give Sasha a B-. The B for obviously making his first Grand Slam quarterfinal. And I think also the reason I give him a B is he's going to take a lot out of this, because over those 3 matches, he kind of fell into the other guy's game, playing well behind the baseline rather than, you know, playing his own game. And so he'll look back at it, hopefully make adjustments, and hopefully we'll continue to see Sasha making big runs in these Grand Slams.
Yes, I'd agree. I think it seems likely, though he should probably be looking to make it a bit more straightforward in the future. But moving on, another quarterfinalist of this tournament was Marin Cilic. Is obviously someone who's reached 2 Grand Slam finals over the past 12 months, in a rich vein of form. Obviously, a former Grand Slam champion at the US Open back in 2014. Not particularly associated with being a clay quarter, but a solid run through to the last 8 here.
Yeah, I feel like he might be a little disappointed with the result against Delpo. I mean, he probably could have taken the first set, but Ray had to play a part in that. But then took set 2, but then I feel like Delpo was just a little better in sets 3 and 4. So, like you said, Cilic, not known to be the best clay guy, ended up being taken to 5 by Fognini, who him himself had a very good tournament. Also had a second set, dropped to Hubert Hurkacz, the Polish qualifier. I think it'll be a solid B for Cilic. Not too often, like you said, we consider him a clay court guy, but back-to-back French Open quarterfinals, good on the resume. Hopefully, he should be looking probably to make the last 4 in the next few years. He's 29 right now, so. And obviously, we talk about the Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, Murray, like Boca and Wawrinka. So he can still win a Grand Slam title in his 30s, and I feel like he just like one hot tournament, just like 2014 U.S. Open, it'll happen for him.
No, I agree, and obviously some good form at the French Open. I think probably bodes well for the grass courts for him. And someone else who's probably like Cilic looking forward to the grass courts would be Grigor Dimitrov. Obviously, like Cilic, clay not his surface, but was unable to make it past the 3rd round once again. What do you make of his tournament? Because he had that epic 2nd round match, and in his 3rd round match really wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, Dimitrov has just had a very disappointing season in general. I mean, so much was expected out of him. Finally broke through, won a Masters title in Cincinnati, won the Nitto ATP finals in a classic against Goffin. I mean, probably one of the most unexpected Nitto ATP finals. Try saying that 2-3 times fast. In probably the history of the event. But they found their way through. But it's just been so disappointing for Grigor this year. I mean, you look at his quarterfinal in Australia. Like he great to do that, but including beating his good buddy Nick Kyrgios, but very disappointing loss to Kyle Edmund. I mean, Kyle Edmund's had a great season, British #1 now, but so disappointing there for Grigor to not have played Cilic in the semifinal, and probably could have been favored against Cilic in that semifinal to potentially meet Federer in the final. So disappointing there for him, and then obviously still has not made it to the 2nd week of the French Open. So it's been a pretty rough season for Dimitrov. And then Donaldson probably could have taken that 2nd round match too, but he just looked gassed, and maybe some injury he picked up somewhere or something like that. Donaldson had to resort to some underhand serve, so it looked bad for him. But I have to give Dimitrov a D. I mean, Verdasco is very good, but he just looked out of it in that match, and I think I just give the D cumulatively for the whole year, but I just D for the French Open as well.
Yeah, I'd agree. Not a great tournament. I mean, before the tournament, I did predict Verdasco to win that.
Yeah, likewise.
But I wasn't expecting it to be so one-sided. Yeah, I think partly because of how long he'd had to play beforehand. But obviously, side note, you kind of mentioned, and you particularly mentioned, a bad year in general, particularly considering he's some of the highs of last year. Obviously, he's had success on the grass before. Do you think he'll have good opportunities to turn that around, or do you think, much like you saw on the women's side with Dominika Cibulkova last year after winning the WTA finals in 2016, having a major slump, do you think that's going to continue happening with him?
I think if he doesn't find it on the grass, he's not going to find it at all this year. So the grass is going to be a huge factor for Dimitrov's season. If he can find some form, play his way into like maybe a final or maybe a strong showing in a semifinal, and I believe he's headed to Queens, right?
Yeah, he's well, I think he's going to be. I think Del Potro's top seed at Queens. I have a feeling he's going to be
the 2
3rd seed behind Cilic.
Oh, okay. So yeah, loaded field in Queens. So if he finds a very good run here, and then follows that up with Wimbledon, I think he could figure out a way to salvage his season.
Yes, be interesting to see. He obviously has won Queens before, but that was a while ago now. So we'll go on. But the final person that Noel is going to discuss in quite a bit of detail is a former Roland Garros champion who's unfortunately looking way off his best at the moment, which is Stan Wawrinka. Obviously, we all know he had a slight knee issue last year. I believe it was knee. Is that right?
Yeah, had knee surgery, and people came up. This is what I hate. Some media people sometimes. I mean, I am one of them, but some of the they're like, "Was your decision to get knee surgery kind of is because Federer got knee surgery and he became like amazing after?" And I just kind of like rolled my eyes, like hearing that question.
Yeah, so he was suffering from that in his first round loss to Wimbledon last year, and obviously didn't play again for the rest of the season. And whilst we talk about someone like Djokovic, who's struggled a bit since his return at the beginning of this year, but is slowly picking up some form.
Mm-hmm.
Stan's really been able to do that, and he was, I think, 2-1 up in his first round clash against Guillermo Garcia Lopez.
A breakup in the fourth as well.
Breakup in the fourth, and eventually couldn't pull through. And this is the second time he's lost to Garcia Lopez in the first round here. So, what's your reflection on more disappointment for him?
I just think it's the old Stan, the powerful Stan. I mean, he is still powerful, but you know how he could just hit anyone off the court at any given time. I mean, look what he did to Djokovic in the French Open final a few years ago, and then his U.S. Open title, and then obviously the epic classics with Novak in Australia. I just think the best is behind Stan. And it's so disappointing to see. Like, you thought, if he found a way through his first round match, you thought, he'd find a way to have a nice little run here. But sadly, I think his best days are going to be behind. I believe he's out of the world's top 250 now.
Yes, obviously he didn't play after Wimbledon last year, and he had final points to defend here even.
Yeah.
Obviously lost to Rafa last year. So yeah, out the top 250, I think around 256th, I believe he was projected to fall. So he's going to have to rely on the wild cards, and I don't think he has a protected ranking. So
I don't think he can use protected ranking anymore.
No.
So disappointing for Stan. I'm sure he'll get wild cards to anywhere he goes. I mean, 3-time Grand Slam champion. Only one he is missing is Wimbledon, but that looks far. That looks like a dream now. Like, it'd be like it's a phenomenal story if it happened, but have to give Stan an F. I mean, he looked pretty decent like leading up to this, but to go after dropping the first set, 2 sets and a breakup in the fourth, just not finding a way. Maybe the knee's still bothering him. Who knows? But I think, it is not the best for Stan, so I have to give him the disappointing F.
Yes, that's, I believe, a fair assessment. And before we conclude, we're just going to discuss a couple more plays in a bit less detail. One man we have to mention is someone who's already come up on this podcast, the only man to take a set off the king of clay, Rafa Nadal, of this tournament. That was Diego Schwartzman, who was a set and break up at one point before a couple of rain delays eventually contributed. It was not the only factor to his eventual quarterfinal loss. What did you think of Diego's couple of weeks?
I think Diego is brilliant. I mean, obviously the only one to take us out of Rafa, but look what he did. Straight sets, first 3 matches, and his match against Anderson kind of reminded us of something a fellow countryman of his did at the U.S. Open, also in the 4th round. Don't you feel?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was. I think Kevin Anderson served for that in both the 3rd and 4th sets, didn't he? He served for the match.
Yeah.
It was a really wonderful comeback. I thought before that match and before the tournament, I predicted Schwartzman to win that. And I saw the first 2 sets and I was like, wow, this is lightning stuff from Anderson, who's obviously played so well over the past 12 months. But yeah, incredible comeback, similar to Del Potro, the team at New York, like he said.
Yeah, so yeah, brilliant comeback. I mean, yeah, shades of grandstand going bonkers. Davis Cup like atmosphere in that one, and world class comeback from Schwartzman. And then obviously the only one to take a set off Nadal here in Paris, so has to be a very good A for him. And we'll see what he holds into the grass. Probably not his best surface, but he's been playing fantastic tennis this year, so he'll probably hope for a couple nice wins at Wimbledon.
Yes, to see yeah, like you said, grass not his strongest, but with that confidence. See, and we'll go on now to another Argentinian who proved to be one of the biggest stories of the whole tournament. Obviously, coming in for a little bit of a background, at the beginning of the season, they introduced the rules where you, if you pull out before your first round clash, you get half the first round prize money. They introduced that because there were so many retirements in slams, particularly on the men's side. Obviously, it's best of 5. So many at Wimbledon last year, it's ridiculous. It caused a huge debate. And there was a couple of openings because so many people did pull out, but Marco Trungelliti got the call. And because he was in, I believe, Barcelona, he took the 9-hour drive, grandma and rest of the family in tow.
Grandma and mom, yeah.
Yeah, grandma and tow, and then reached the tournament in time for the Monday event. Won his first round match. Just it's such a remarkable story, isn't it?
Yeah. So you talked about some of the story already, but another part of the story is like the only reason grandma and mom were there is because they were visiting him in Barcelona. They were staying over, and so after he gets the call, and the call is to I believe in the French Open, the call for lucky losers to anyone. Is that correct?
I think because at that stage, because obviously they have it listed by ranking in terms of who loses in the third round of qualifying. But because so many people had gone home, anyone who'd lost in qualifying, if they'd signed in, they would have been able to play because they got that desperate for people because lots of people had lost and then gone off to other challenges.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think a couple of people, there was the person, I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but the guy who was meant to be next in line had already gone off because he didn't think he had a chance. So it ended up being Trungelliti who made it through because he managed to get to Paris.
Yeah, like you said, 9-hour drive, Barcelona to Paris, mom, grandma. He even said himself, I don't even have social media. I think my wife is the one who put this up. So I think just for the story itself and winning his first round match, I think it has to be an A plus, right? You can't give him anything else.
No, I mean, yeah, it's a remarkable story. Yeah, I mean, he'd reached the second round of the French Open the past 2 years, so he was going to potentially lose quite a few points. So, yes, incredible result for him. And also, looking at this, he picked up his first challenger title early this year as well, so good on him. But before we end this pod, obviously, it's the French Open. We have to talk about some of the Frenchmen. We've focusing on Lucas Pouille, Richard Gasquet, Gael Monfils. All of them fell in the third round in varying circumstances. What did you make of them? No,
I think it's gonna have to be. So I'm gonna give them all a different grade. Well, probably just like C average for Gasquet. I mean, go against Rafa. He hasn't beaten the guy since like who knows how long. I know Gasquet beat him when they were 10 years old. But
yeah. I think it's now 16 love on the tour.
16 on the tour. Yeah, I think. Nadal Gasquet holds one challenger win because Nadal retired or something like that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, tour level, one way try. So see, kind of we expected this from Gasquet. I mean, he didn't play poorly. He did have chances. So I think average for him. Probably gonna give B- to Monfils because he probably should have taken that match. But we know how Monfils is. He's hot and he's cold, and we saw that all throughout that match against David Goffin. So he was 2 sets to 1 up there, and he probably should have won that. To be honest.
4 match points, so yeah, he certainly had his chances.
Yeah, but props to Goffin for holding them off, and then Puig. I mean, we've talked about this on previous podcasts. He's just so disappointing in these big tournaments, and it comes again. Crowd backing him. Believe he was a double break in the second against Khachanov, and then and had so many game points for a tie break, I believe, in the second set. And who knows how that would have turned out, but is 9th times the charm for the Russian in that 12th game, which proved to be so crucial. And then we just kind of looked out of it, and the air was taken out of the French carrot. So you have to give him a T. So cumulatively, it's going to be a C. So cumulatively, it's going to be a C because, they're just – it's kind of what we expect from the Frenchmen. I mean, we had no Tsonga. He's the one we expect the most out of. But a C. Hopefully, one day we finally see a freshman, make the final here or something. Maybe Nadal should just, be French, honorary French. I mean, they should practically, change the trophy to his name or something, right?
Absolutely. Well, that is our reflection on the men's draw finished. So, Noel, where could we find you on social media?
You can find me at Not First Noel. You can also find me writing at Vavel. Both Oliver and I writing for Vavel USA, and you can find the tennis pod Twitter. There we go, at On the Line Pod.
Absolutely. As Noel mentioned, I also write for Vavel. So obviously, French Open just finished. Grass Court coming up. Hopefully, quite a bit of writing coming up. You can find me on Twitter at OliverDJ1998. This has been the On the Line Pod. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you have a nice evening.
Quick news, it all pulled out of Queens. No surprise there.
Yeah, no, not surprised.
All right. Have a good one, everyone.